Treason. We're live. Good lighting. Okay, update. FJ's good. Head cold did not settle. A massive meal and sleep helped. I was good yesterday. Better today. I love it. Everybody's a doctor. Take this much vitamin D. I don't know, 10,000 units or milligrams. There's IUs and there's micrograms. That's a lot. And Dr. Chiropractor says he should do that. I don't know. 2,000 micrograms might be better. Well balanced, not overdose. See, I've always found cures colds. Zinc stops you from getting them. Just saying. All right. Still cold. Sun is out today. Windy yesterday, 20 knots. It was cranking. You don't want to be on the ocean in that, especially in cold weather like this. That would be the basis of a nor'easter. Good morning, Jacqueline. Jacqueline D. That must be the new account because they killed your old one. Because you're quiet, peaceful, incisive commentary. Hammering them out there. Good work. All right, so cold is good, no cold. Next, a couple of important points. I'll give a shout out to Ms. Mamba in Australia, who put a very interesting comment in, talking about the Myanmar-Burma coup and whether or not that's China flexing its muscles in order to obtain control of the shipping routes in the South China Sea. She had suggested that I speak with Steve, who's pretty good on logistics. And I was thinking of pinging Steve, so I did. I spoke to Steve. Steve thinks that this is all theater. I agree. And that's why this impeachment is theater. We'll talk about that for a second. I'll do a shout out to Victoria and Ed. And she found the link to the full response to the impeachment. But I don't have the actual articles of impeachment, although I didn't look. This is interesting. So I think we could take this out of order. But I do want to say, let's review. So the concept is those two bills that I mentioned, one by Andy Biggs out of Arizona, and the other one, what's her name? Oh, I can't remember. I want to say Rohrabark or something like that, out of Colorado, 3rd District, on the making masks, what recommended, not mandatory, using federal funds. Andy Biggs came in and used federal funds, and I've got questions about him. I think he's a deep stater through and through, and he's putting a little theater up. However, the opportunity does stand where we, the people in America, can comment to our representatives, and it's a great opportunity. Hello, Lansing. Here's the thing. Gives you a perfect opportunity to contact your rep's office and say you're not going to speak with the rep, not unless you're bringing your checkbook, and you will speak with your rep's staffers. You can ask for the chief of staff, and you are urging them and demanding that they support this bill or make amendments or changes to make it better. And it becomes quite a bit of a cluster and a process. But people all around the country need to get hold of their reps, and this is a perfect opportunity to speak with the reps and build a relationship. And it doesn't matter if they're a Democrat, it doesn't matter if they're a Republican, because we all know they are full of shit. Excuse me. Dust. We're going to play Susie Homemaker later today. And I got to do a car every time. Are we going to do 3? Counting. 1, 2. All right, excuse me. And we all know they're full of special interests. So the concept is to say to them, listen, we want our rep to support this. We vote. We matter. We care. When are you having a town hall meeting? And get your friends, neighbors, and countrymen to speak to their reps and your rep. Maybe the opportunity to put together a little group, an active group, a vocal group to get out there and get on their case. And you contact them, and then you call back a week later, and before you know it, they know you, and as long as you're not a flaming asshole screaming and yelling, and you want to affect something, like, hey, this is an important bill. And then they may ask you, what do you think about this bill or that bill, and see if you are actually an informed citizenry. So this is a key opportunity now to do this because it's set up. The exposure of the degeneracy and the corruption has been made blindingly clear. They're aware of it. If not, you can point out Smith-Munt. You can complain about the media. If they're one of your people, great. If they're not, you can still say this bill should be supported. And we have questions about our voting machines, and we want that fixed too. That's when you speak to your state reps. Active citizenry, all right? That's the concept. So, Thumper Silly Wabbit, a longtime viewer and supporter, had put up a comment, and I pinned it. And it's a perfect opportunity to communicate with your reps, okay? And that bill should be supported, encouraged, brought to the floor, and put up for a vote, okay? All right. This gives you the opportunity to deal with your reps. That's the key. Whether it gets done, whether it passes, are two different things. Andy Biggs is talking about preventing forced vaccines. Also very important. And as some people say, get on it, right? It's either that or keep clicking around and find that guy with his charger, or watch porn and fight carpal tunnel syndrome. All right? Now, first is the article on the inflated CDC numbers. This is a repost from last time. Nobody commented, so I'm thinking nobody looked at it. Okay, why not? Well, because we're looking for porn. This isn't it. So take a look. Now we have two fun posts, and then we'll get into the meat of this while the campers are coming in, right? Dinosaur footprint fossil found in Wales. This is fascinating. There's a picture, so you can click on that. No reading required. All right? Very cool. Little girl walking with her father somewhere on the beach, saw this on a rock and found it. Turns out it's a fossilized dinosaur footprint. They're guesstimating, what, 200 million years ago? And then, of course, if you look at the comments, somebody says the Bible says it's no more than 7,000 years old. So there you go. You decide. Take a look at the picture. It's fascinating. And then there's more links in there talking about other dinosaur finds that they made in Patagonia. Interesting section of the planet. Gigantic dinosaurs, the really big ones. This guy, I think the footprint is only 4 inches. It's fascinating. I've always been into dinosaurs, you know what I mean? Dinosaurs I always thought were cool. Next, so that's an interesting find. That just came out yesterday on the 2nd, Groundhog Day. Actually, being that we're running a little late, I should bring Piglet out and see if he sees his shadow. And this way he can be Hog Boy, qualifying as a groundhog, and let's see. How's that for some extrapolated reasoning? Because there's a plan, and it's really still continuing. Now, people have said the White House is dark. Is that accurate? The lights aren't on in the White House? Who says? I'd like some evidence of that. Maybe I should get hold of Webby and say, Webby, are the lights on in the White House at not, or what? Or is this more fake info? We'll call it fish food for the conspiracy theorists, because that's what it is. Because everybody's a doctor, everybody's a lawyer, and everybody knows what the plan is, but nobody picks up the phone. And of course, if you go to a rally in Washington, they'll have a preordained attack by inside. Just thinking out loud. Sorry, campers. A white cup. A green shirt. Is there significance? No. The third link is the mask IQ test. This is hilarious, but it just shows it's an IQ test, I call it. The brain damage and the obliviousness of the general public at large. The mindless herd. This is a guy, I'm going to tell you, then you watch it. It's a Twitter post, and they filmed it and put it up. And he has his face mask blue, painted on his face with the straps in white and the blue. and it's his face is there, but he's got like face paint on. There's no mask. It looks like there's a mask, and he's wandering around the store, and nobody commented. I think this wins the award for the best mask. Ridiculous. Check it out. It's about a minute long. Very curious. Between that and the dinosaur footprint, you might get a chuckle and some intrigue into both the human condition, scarcity, and the other urgency component is the time limit. The sale ends in 10 hours. There's only 10 left, okay? So act quick. That's the scarcity. But it creates the urgency, and it's called direct response marketing. And somebody made the point about the donuts and the stand or in the glass thing. You don't want to take the but. That was the concept, all right? If you got the 6 there and then 5, but what if the person takes, you watch the guy ahead of you online take 1 and there's 1 left? Are you going to grab that one, or is someone else going to get it and you're going to starve to death? Just the thought. And those vaccines, they're hard to get, so you better act quick before they're all gone. Get it? A marketing technique. All right, now let's get to the meat of this, the IQ test on the mask. That's it. The Trump team response to the impeachment and then Mercola's article at the end. All right, now this ties into the first article on the CDC numbers. Raven put a comment in, and other people have said as well that the CDC mandated that the PCR test cycles be reduced. This is 2 or 3 weeks ago. All right, now, what were they reduced to? And I'd love to see that quote. If somebody could find it, that would be wonderful. Evidently, it's turned down to 35. Miraculously, the number of cases are dropping. Now, Mercola, and this is the last link, is COVID cases dropping, the PCR test, and the big picture. This is an excellent article, and it's worth reading. It's important stuff. He puts together the big picture. This is basically what I said, a year ago, that they're going to spin this up and down. And my concern was, you test positive, come with us, please, go to your COVID camp. And nobody has challenged the tests. I don't see DWI lawyers out there hammering on the tests. But is it a criminal prosecution, or is it a civil prosecution? Or is it, what do they call that? Health policy, okay? It's an emergency. Trump declared the emergency. Trump gave us COVID, warp speed. Trump shut down the economy for 2 weeks, for starters. And Trump gave us Biden. But some people believe that Trump is still the president and that Biden wasn't sworn in and that, I don't know. And what are they building in front of the White House? I don't know. Let me think. Is it a prison? Is that giant fence there to keep everybody in? How about this? How about they're putting that there so the committees can meet to write up the new executive orders for Biden to sign? CCP can come in with their White House pass. But Sidney Powell couldn't get one. Something doesn't wash, does it? Let's go back to Mercola, shall we? And then the Trump response team is important. So Mercola gives you a great overview of how this thing has been done, the PCR tests, calling them cases, 97% false positives, and he goes into the media. He does not mention Smith monetization. He does talk about the consolidated power, how this is a worldwide push. He goes into the World Economic Forum. He goes into which one is this? The Council on Foreign Relations, the whole deal. So it's good. He's picking this up. This is a good spin. Well worth the read. Now, let's go back to the Trump one and do a face punch. This is good, but they don't realize it. This is the response to the impeachment. I think it's 14 pages. I skimmed it. You know the way I am. I have to look at the wherefore. What do you want? Give me a wherefore what? The wherefore is they don't ask for a dismissal. My argument, and I haven't read the whole thing and I'm going to shortly, but The simple argument, if you want to play by the law in this country, is A, it is an improper indictment. There was no hearing, there was no evidence, there were no witnesses. Okay, so therefore the indictment is defective. It violates due process, period. That's A. It's defective, it should be thrown out. Number one. Number two, it's moot. M-O-O-T. Not mute, it's moot. Therefore, it should be muted. Smash the mute button because they're asking to remove somebody from office who's already left office. Wherefore, it should be dismissed as moot. So you have it dismissed for a defective indictment, dismissed for mootness. In the alternative, he should be found not guilty. All right? But if you read this, these two geniuses are going through the whole rigmarole, but they don't say it should be dismissed. They should be prevented from hearing this. First of all, all right, what are we, third or fourth point at this point? John Roberts, Chief Justice of the U.S., presides over an impeachment. So this is unmitigated bullshit, unmitigated theater, spinning it up, and I could care less. The only thing I'm looking for, in my view, is to see how they're attempting to turn the Constitution on its head, disregard it, ignore it, supersede, override, and just ignore it. Now, the operative words are, the president shall be impeached for treason, stay with me, bribery, stay with me, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay, so they're going to say inciting a riot or inciting an insurgency would qualify as high crimes and misdemeanor, or is that treason? So, let's think about this for a minute, shall we? Treason. This was in 1776, 1789. What was the definition of treason then? They didn't have the United States Code, where we have the Talmudic overstrike of law and the Debbie Wasserman Schultz rules. And how do you get around it? Where you have to be aiding the enemy at a time of war declared by Congress. That's treason. Really? Was that what they meant by treason in 1776? I don't think so. I think it was acting against the interests of the country. So would that qualify of making private deals with a foreign nation at the injury and detriment to the United States? Would that qualify? Would it mean passing laws, violating the Constitution and undermining it, with damaging the country? Would that qualify as treason? I'm curious what the military code says is the definition of treason. So our work for today, campers, is let's look up and figure out at the time what the definition of treason is. I've got Black's Law Dictionary over here, and I could look it up, but I am sure they will refer us to the United States Code. And to limit it to a statutory definition means it's built to avoid enforcement. You see? How do you get around it? Talmudic law. 10 steps from the outhouse before you turn left. Then you could go and play with your wife. Oh, wait. Now, how big are those steps? We need interpretation. When you turn left, what is the angle of turn? Is it a 90-degree turn? Is it 45 degrees? Let's get around that law, because actually it was 14 steps and it wasn't big steps, so it's really the equivalent. You understand? Let's litigate it. And we have an infestation of this hyper-technical bullshit language has become our legal system. And I think Bill Still did an interesting thing several years ago. He says, look, you can't make laws to stop people from doing bad things because they'll do it, and if there's no law, then you have to make a new law. Oh, and it needs interpretation. So, it's an interesting thought. How do you get around it? And that's why you have got volumes of laws and regulations and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Interesting. telling people what not to do. Oh, we weren't clear enough. And yet, what's the definition of treason as we watch the red, blue, white, black, liberal, conservative game being spun out and the Constitution quietly being eviscerated? Now, in my discussion with Steve this morning, we were talking about the concept of Biden and his executive orders, and the blank pages, and he doesn't know what he's signing, and great. And why is this happening? Are they effective? Are they enforceable? Or is this really, what I said, similar to the Democratic extremist garbage from the last 3 years? They could outdo each other with more extreme positions to desensitize the public from the radical positions. You back it down, right? You push for 10 yards, you back it down to 1 yard, you've still moved a yard, and people say, well, that's certainly better than the 10 yards. But they gave them a yard, right? Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So now, is this all about executive orders? And I argue it's all about programming the public, desensitizing the public to the executive orders, which is the mandates of the king, of the ruler, of the dictator. I hereby order the following. So get used to it, public, because that's the way this is supposed to be run. That's their language, not mine. There is no legislative process. He's just stroking out orders. Okay, now, this started with Obama, and Trump was talking for years about how, I'll fix it with executive order. Biden was saying everybody's going to do orders because the king is taking power, and that all fits into play. Get used to it, public, because that's how our government works, because we don't teach civics, because we're not an informed citizenry, because we're watching television and social media and chirping and yapping and laugh tracks on television. This way you know it's funny. That's why they put in a laugh track. So this way you know it's funny, even though it's not. Because if it was so funny, they wouldn't have to clue you in. And that's called social proof. But it's fake social proof. When all those donuts are gone except for one, it means those are the good ones. When you go down the street and there's 2 restaurants on either side of the street, and there's 50 people on line on the one on the left, and there's nobody and empty on the right, which one are you going to go to? Well, it depends. If you're hungry, you might go into that because you got to jump in. But is it just a shitty restaurant? That's why there's nobody there. And is the one that's packed the good one? So you might come back another time. You might make reservations. But that's called social proof. Okay? And people, as a herd mentality, certainly follow that. Right? And those donuts disappear because those are the good ones. And on that, you get a, well now. Man, I'm thinking about donuts. I hate donuts. I like the custard stuff, not the white sugary stuff, the custard stuff. And they actually have good ones at 7-Eleven. So maybe I should grab that and a pizza, the $7 pizza, which literally takes them 1 minute and 50 seconds to cook. So if you order the whole pie for $7, try it. Pepperoni or regular cheese, if that's cheese. 2 minutes, same price. What a deal. Such a deal, as they say. All right, now, let's go back to Trump. So the lawyers, again, not being proactive, but being responsive, right, are arguing that this is how you would argue around it rather than saying dismiss it. It doesn't qualify as a valid indictment. It's moot because you can't remove somebody from office who's already not there, right? But this feeds the other people that say, well, he's still president. Oh, okay, sure. But I argue, if you really want to keep feeding that horse shit, that, well, they'll do the impeachment. He'll be, convicted or not convicted. It doesn't matter. But when he tries to run for president in 24, the Democrats will say, nope, he's prevented from running again because he's been impeached. Then the argument will come up and say, well, it was an improper impeachment. Roberts didn't preside. It was an invalid thing. And we'll create that whole argument kind of along the lines of Obama was a birther, and you create a whole new political movement, create the discord and a sideshow. Just the way Cam is not eligible to be president because her citizenship is being questioned by people, and therefore let's start a new political figure who will become the lead on that argument, accomplishing nothing but putting them into the public eye and becoming a Donald Trump who came out and challenged Obama. Where did that story go when he became president? Interesting. So it's long-term theater. You have those writers preparing this stuff. So I see that. Whether I'm right or wrong, we'll have to see if we have an election in 2024. Hang on a second. Now, the key is, what is treason? When they put that in the Constitution, he can be impeached for treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. They didn't have the United States Code then defining treason, did they? So what was the definition of treason then? Is it anything that's acting against the interests of the country? Is that a question for a jury to decide in a trial, or the Senate to decide in a trial? Well, that's an interesting question. Let's not forget, there were 13 colonies that became states, not 50 and not 500 and some odd people in Congress. It was a small, little, cuddly group of very radical thinkers who were adamant about protecting their individual liberties. And the publishing industry has been trying to undermine them for a long time. Curious. And now let's see the big investigation into the short squeeze done on GameStop. They're going to investigate the Reddit people. Imagine that. And is anybody suggesting that Robinhood app is actually, what kind of interest does the Citadel Group have in Robinhood? Or is it the guy's brother-in-law? He says, hey, Hank, Hal, you got to stop them from trading. They're killing us over here. Well, we know there's at least one good class action suit. I'd like to read that. That would be fun. Let's see the complaint. They're saying there's two. Think about that. And those bankers and those publishers are the same people running the operation. And how many people sit on the same boards of directors with the corporate control? And that brings us back to Mercola's article, which is talking about the very limited source of media, right? Just saying, campers. And then we have the CDC with numbers. Now, how many congressmen, representatives, senators, and presidents who sign into law things that directly contravene the Constitution could be charged with treason? And they should be expelled from Congress, the Senate, or the House, or both. And they should be removed from the presidency. What do you think the chances of that happening are? Once you have an idea, you can pursue it. So now we bring this back to the article on top, or actually they were the links in the last show, about the two pieces of legislation that were introduced, and you get to call your representative and say, hey, dude, you need to support this, right? How do we make that happen? You don't need to do a petition. If you do a petition, fine. But the people that do the petition, connect with them. Have a group, 2, 3, 5, 20 people. And they don't have to be in your neighborhood. They could be. They could be around your state. We did that in North Carolina on the voter integrity thing. Very important. All right? And I think we used Yahoo groups or whatever back then. This was a while ago. Wasn't being censored, but the people were together. You just shoot emails, right? It doesn't have to be massive groups. But you contact your rep, and there were state reps in various districts, and they were all being hammered, and Raleigh happens to be the capital. And when they meet, there's access, so you go and you talk to them. And you say, hey, we need to have voter integrity. We don't care who wins, but we need to know the vote was counted properly, right? That's the way you do it. Okay, That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Good to see you again, campers, and I'm glad I didn't come down with the COVID. And who knows, maybe that was the COVID, the potential makings of a head cold. Oh my God. Zinc, vitamin D, vitamin C, and good food. Last night I was going to make a beef stew. Tonight I'm going to make the beef stew. And in fact, because it's nice and cold today, even though the sun is out, I think I'm going to make that shortly. This way I'll have that for lunch and din din. Maybe I'll get one of those donuts for dessert. Come on, you knew that was coming. All right, here we go. All right, Americans, step up. And Australians, glad you guys are loving this. I think you're coming in from Victoria and Ed's site, because I now know why they're up in the middle of the night, because we are social media people, and we're chattering to Australia and New Zealand and sending you guys over here, but you haven't been paying attention for a long time. So let's try and stay on point, shall we, campers? Yes, Ida, beef stew sounds real good with red potatoes, carrots, green beans. And I throw in a little can of tomato sauce in there too, just for the taste, and some oregano. Now here's a completely meaningless comment, Denise. That's good. And this is why I don't watch them. Let me think of something good. How much nitrogen do you need to make your lawn get green? You know what I mean? That's good. Anyway, the Mercola article is an excellent overview. The Trump team response is excellent. Check the wherefore in that. And look at how treason, bribery, and high crimes and misdemeanors. So, what was treason defined at in 1776? Let's look that up. I want to know. I have an inquiring mind. And how did that get, shall we say, replaced with a definition that really prevents any kind of enforcement of that concept? All right. Of course, I'm putting in the links. I'm tired of pitching. That's the scoop. Thank you, campers. FJ out. We'll see you later. Bye for now. Give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe. Check these articles, the dinosaur and the mask IQ test. Bye for now.